The puppy appeared out of nowhere. I was coming back from the bakery that Thursday morning when I felt something brush against my leg. I looked down and saw those brown eyes staring at me with an intensity that took my breath away. It was a small golden retriever, dirty, trembling. But it wasn't the kind of shiver from cold. It was desperation. My name is Clara. I work as a nurse at the municipal hospital and have been living alone for 3 years, since my sister moved to the countryside. My routine had always been the same: work, home, work, home. Nothing extraordinary. Nothing that could have prepared me for this. The little dog didn't stop looking at me. I tried to move on, but he started barking. It wasn't a normal bark. It was a high-pitched sound, almost human, as if he were begging. I knelt down and touched his head. It was cold. His little paws were slightly bleeding, as if he had been running a lot. I reached into my bag to give him a piece of the bread I had bought. He refused. That scared me. A hungry puppy that refuses food? Something was very wrong. I stood up to keep walking, but he gently bit the hem of my pants and pulled in the opposite direction. He insisted. He whimpered. He looked back, then at me again. It was at that moment that I felt my heart race. He wasn't lost. He was asking me for help. I looked around. The street was empty. It was 7 in the morning, and the sun was still weak. My phone showed I had 40 minutes before my shift started. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me just wanted to go to work and forget. But another part, the one that still believed in signs, couldn't turn away. The puppy pulled again. This time, harder. And I followed him. I don't know why I did it. Maybe because in recent years my life had become so mechanical that I needed something different. Or maybe because that look reminded me of something I had lost, the ability to trust in the invisible. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Share in the comments what you think so far and which city or country you are watching from. The little puppy led me down a side street I had never taken before. We walked for almost 15 minutes. He walked ahead, looking back every 10 steps as if he wanted to make sure I was still there. My shift had already started, but something inside me said this was more important. We left the residential area and entered a dirt road that led to the municipal park. The vegetation grew denser with every meter. The silence was heavy. All that could be heard was the sound of dry leaves under my feet and the puppy's labored breathing. That's when I saw the first strange thing. A woman's purse thrown on the ground, open, with its contents scattered. Lipstick, wallet, documents. I stopped. My stomach twisted. I picked up the wallet with trembling hands. There was an ID. The name was Laura Mendez. 32 years old. The address was from a nearby neighborhood. The little puppy barked again. Impatient. Desperate. I put the wallet in my pocket and continued. Now my heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. I took out my phone and saw there was no signal. I thought about going back. I thought about calling the police. But the puppy was already too far ahead, almost disappearing among the trees. I ran after him. Further ahead, I saw marks on the ground. Lines dragged in the dirt. Broken branches. And then, blood. Not much, but enough to make me stop breathing for a few seconds. My training as a nurse made me analyze. Fresh blood, probably less than 12 hours old. Someone had been hurt there. The puppy stopped in front of a narrower trail and looked at me with those eyes I now completely understood. He wasn't taking me for a walk. He was showing me a crime. I felt fear. I felt the urge to run. But I also felt something I hadn't expected: anger. Anger at whoever had done this. Anger at whoever had left this little puppy alone to seek help. I took a deep breath and moved forward. Every step was an act of courage I didn't know I had. Fear mixed with adrenaline. I wasn't a police officer. I had no training. I was just a nurse who had followed a puppy on instinct. But now, I was all that person had. The trail opened into a small clearing. And that was when I saw her. A woman was lying near a tree, partially hidden by bushes. Her body was motionless, her face turned to the side. She had visible injuries on her arms and a dark blood stain on her shirt. My training kicked in before my brain could even process the shock. I ran to her and knelt down. I placed 2 fingers on her neck. A weak pulse, but present. She was alive. The puppy came closer and lay down beside the woman, resting his snout against her hand. That's when I understood everything. He was her dog. He had stayed with her all night. And when morning came, he ran into the city to look for help. Tears burned my eyes, but there was no time for emotion. I took off my jacket and covered her body. I checked her injuries. Deep cuts on her left arm, bruises on her face, signs of a struggle. She had fought back. I took out my phone again. Still no signal. I looked around, trying to calculate how long it would take to run back to the main road. But then she moaned. Her eyes opened slightly. They were cloudy, confused, full of pain. She tried to speak, but only a hoarse whisper came out. I leaned my ear closer to her mouth. He may still be here. My blood froze. I looked around. The forest was far too quiet. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every rustle of leaves made me jump. I had no way of knowing whether the person who had done this was gone or watching. I had to make a quick decision. Leaving her there alone while I went to get help was risky. But staying there waiting was dangerous too. I took a deep breath and did the only thing that made sense. I grabbed the woman by the shoulders and began to drag her carefully. She was light, but every movement pulled groans of pain from her. The little puppy followed us, now calmer, as if he knew that someone was finally taking control of the situation. I used all my strength. Every muscle in my body screamed, but I didn't stop. My mind repeated a single phrase: I will not let her die here. Not today. I dragged her for almost 200 meters until finally, my phone picked up a signal. I dialed the emergency number with trembling hands. When the operator answered, I could barely speak. I told her where we were. I begged them to come quickly. 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. I sat there on the ground next to Laura, holding her hand. The little puppy wouldn't leave our side. She drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring things I couldn't understand. I kept talking to her, telling her help was coming, that she would be okay. But inside, I was terrified. That's when I heard footsteps. They weren't footsteps of help. They were heavy, slow, coming from the opposite direction of the road. My entire body froze. The puppy growled softly, the hair on his neck standing up. I turned my head slowly and saw a man standing among the trees. He was tall, wearing dark clothes, with an empty expression on his face. He stared at us for a few seconds that felt like eternity. Then he took a step toward us. I didn't think. I just acted. I stood up, placed my body in front of Laura, and screamed with all the strength I had. They weren't words. It was a pure, wild scream, from someone who would not let anything bad happen anymore. The little puppy barked along with me, advancing a few steps. The man stopped. He looked at me as if he were calculating. I was trembling, but I didn't look away. My hand searched the ground and found a thick branch. I grabbed it and raised it as if it were a weapon. And then sirens. The sound came from afar, but it was enough. The man turned and disappeared into the forest. He vanished as quickly as he had appeared. My legs gave out, and I fell to my knees, still holding the branch, breathing as if I had run a marathon. The paramedics arrived running. Police came right after. Everything became chaos. Someone draped a blanket over my shoulders. Another person asked questions I could barely answer. But my eyes stayed fixed on Laura being placed on the stretcher. A police officer approached with a little puppy in his arms and asked me if he was mine. I looked into those brown eyes that had changed everything. No, I answered with a broken voice. But he saved his owner. And he saved me too. At that moment, as I watched the ambulance drive away, I understood something profound. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in the same cafe where it all began. Laura had survived. The doctors said that if she had stayed a few more hours in that forest, she wouldn't have made it. Hypothermia, blood loss, everything was against her. But the little puppy, whom she called Bento, had stayed with her all night, keeping her body warm with his own. When morning came, Bento ran almost 3 kilometers to the city. He didn't stop at anyone else. Only at me. To this day, I still don't know why. The man from the forest was arrested 2 days later. Security cameras at a nearby gas station identified him. He had a criminal record. Laura wasn't his first. But thanks to Bento, she was his last victim. When Laura was discharged, she came looking for me. We met at that cafe, and she cried so much that I cried too. She hugged me like you hug family. She told me that Bento had never done anything like that before, that she didn't even know he was capable of so much intelligence and loyalty. I told her that my life had been empty before that day, that I had become a machine for working and sleeping, that I had forgotten what it felt like to matter to someone. Bento sat at our feet, quiet, as if he understood every word. Laura held my hand and said something I will never forget. You didn't just save my life, Clara. You showed me that there are still good people in the world. And that nowadays is almost a miracle. We left that cafe with a promise. We would see each other every week. Bento would be our bond. And somehow, that brave little puppy had brought together two women who needed to believe in something bigger. Today, when I look back, I realize it wasn't a coincidence. It was destiny. Bento chose the right person. And I chose to trust. Sometimes, life puts us in impossible situations just to remind us of what really matters: empathy, courage, and never ignoring a cry for help. If you've made it this far, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share in the comments what you thought of this story and where you are watching from. Your presence here means a lot. Thank you for believing that there are still stories worth telling.